cater to that hassle zone of a customer, that's where disruption happens, that's where people come. Some ingredients that we found, which are very interesting, is that this customer centricity has various implications. A lot of companies start up very quickly. They acquire their first few customers very quickly. And as they start growing larger, they suddenly hit this dead end, and most companies don't go anywhere from that dead end. They never cross that. Why is that? Because when a company originally starts, they look at what the customer needs are and cater to it very carefully. But once they start succeeding, then they start focusing internally. I need to set up an HR system, I need to set up, my manufacturing, I need to do this, I need to do that, and you stop listening to the customer, and you become very much same as the big guy you were trying to compete with. And that doesn't work. The big guy has, basically momentum and this thing on his side. You don't need to exist. You haven't proven your credentials yet. So the ability to keep listening to customers and adapting with customers is critical especially for a disruptive small company. And I think that, to my mind, if that's the one message you take from me today, I think that would be the most important one. The other thing which has become quite apparent is that suddenly scaling doesn't quite happen in the way it used to happen. Markets will not tolerate a vacuum. If you have a great product and you scale gingerly and tentatively, somebody else will come and copy. Do you know, you all are familiar with Zomato? How many of you use Zomato as an app in this room? Quite a few. Do you know that Zomato went from 800 delivery boys to 80,000 delivery boys in how long? 10 months. 10 months. Right? Now just imagine what kind of challenge that requires in terms of just recruitment, equipping and actually putting them on routes, but that's the scale at which they operated. And did they manage to retain a monopoly? They didn't. Swiggy came in. Why? In spite of scaling so fast, they still got Swiggy coming in. Why? Because Zomato made their business model to ask the restaurateur to pay. But what did the customer want? The customer wanted infinite choice. What did Swiggy give the customer? Infinite choice. Right? Again, this thing of cutting down the pain of ordering Zomato was fantastic, but then they stopped listening to the customer. So they allowed Swiggy to come in. Otherwise, they could have just completely dominated the space. Data insight. Right? It is amazing if you look at companies today and you look at, there's one chart, in fact, if you have my deck, can you just put up, I just want to show you, you look at companies and you look at the S&P 500, what's very interesting is if you see, just please, I'll tell you, just keep moving. Yeah, carry on. Yeah, just stop that. Yeah. Can anyone read this chart? These are the market caps of S&P 500. Does something strike you as being very odd? Between Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, which is essentially Google, Microsoft, and Facebook, that's 50% of the market cap of S&P 500. 50% of the market cap. Right? Now what assets do these companies have? They have customer insight and they have data on their customers. That's basically what they have. Right? So if anyone thinks that this data is valuable, will become valuable one day, I think you should look at this chart very carefully. Right? It's already there, it's already happening, and the reality is there is one more phenomenon taking place, and I mentioned the Zomato Swiggy thing specifically for one purpose, is that there has always been change. If you look at businesses, if you look at, just take the S&P 500, 50 years ago, on average, if a company was in S&P 500, it lasted in the S&P 500 for a minimum of 35 years. What is it now? A company stays in the S&P 500 on average for less than 20 years. If you take the last 5 years data, that number is suggesting to be 14 years. So business models and the protection of your profit moat, right, keeps on changing and evolving. So any business which takes its eyes off the customer and stops having what I call a continuous engagement with their relevant customer set is going to suffer a terminal decline. And it's just, is a reality of life. Everything is changing and the speed is changing at an extraordinary pace. Think, there are companies which are not in here, but think, what does Uber have? I was discussing this with somebody a little earlier. What does Uber really have? Is their business model all about simply, having that Uber go and you're connecting the customer with the taxi driver, the person ready to drive? Yes, he has that data of who are the customers who want to ride at any moment, and he has the data on who are the cabs who are ready to carry him. He has. He knows where you are. He knows where he dropped you. He knows that if it's at 12 o'clock at night and you're at a certain location which is famous for pubs, he knows you're probably drunk. He knows that if he charges you in, a 3x pricing at that point in time, you're not going to say no, you have no other choice. You will take it. He knows that if it's raining in a particular place, he will jack up his rates 3x. What are you going to do? He knows your profile. He knows that if at 8:30 in the morning you're getting late for office, you will pay anything. He'll charge you a premium. Did you even know that? Pay attention to the pricing on your apps in future. It is this data that they have on you which allows them this kind of flexible dynamic pricing, which is what generates the value. The markets are not paying those multi-billion-dollar valuations just simply because they have a network impact. They're paying those valuations because they also have that deeper customer insight which can be milked and can be monetized. Right? Oyo. Why is Oyo successful? Does anyone know what Oyo started out in India as? They started out to become the Airbnb of India, but they switched very quickly. It's the point I made even earlier that, business models, especially when you're young, keep on evolving. It's not that you're stuck in one place. It evolved because people didn't actually have extra room in their homes in India. That's just, most homes in India are much smaller than they are in the West. Right? And most families in India are larger on average. So rooms are used. They don't have spare rooms. So they switched their business model to utilize the technology and the infrastructure which they had. There's another customer data insight. How many of you watch Netflix here? Quite a few of you. What does Netflix do? Why did Netflix arrive? Why do they have such a huge market cap? Sure, they killed Blockbuster because you didn't have to run and sort of return videos late at night and pay a huge amount of late fees. But really what made the difference in Netflix? They monitor everything you watch. They monitor what you watch again. They monitor what you rewind and watch. They know what you like, what you don't like. They have data analytic teams who sit and figure out what is it that customers do want to see, and then they started developing content themselves on the basis of their market research. So suddenly the business model changed on its head. It's evolved. But they're actually paying attention to their customers and they have crazy amount of data on their customers. In this generation, and today's customer is very intolerant. Suppose a customer has a problem with something. Did anyone see the ad campaign that British Airways ran and was considered very successful, and their sales started going up. And then over the weekend, they lost Sachin Tendulkar's bags. And Sachin Tendulkar tweeted about it and wrote to British Airways. British Airways said that kindly identify who you are and we will see, and we will, your thing is in process. And somebody else put this up, their response. And I think they got so much abuse for it. This happened, I think, on a Thursday evening. And British Airways did not respond till Monday. And the fact that they didn't respond till Monday, you can actually see visibly their plant load factors, the plane load factors coming down, the utilization coming down within 3 days. Customers are intolerant. If they have a problem, they expect a response immediately. Which brings me to one very lucky phenomenon which is taking place, that the millennials and the Gen Zs don't like to talk to human beings. They're very happy talking on the net, they're very happy talking to bots, they're very happy on email. So you can actually develop AI solutions to talk to them. You don't need human beings. But you need to respond to them really quickly. And there's just tolerance for lack of response to any customer complaint is zero. There is a winner-take-all phenomenon which is there. And that's also linked to frictionness. People don't like to be asked who you are. People don't like to have to check in, establish your credentials. One of the biggest things that Google has going for it is if they ask you your ID once, you can use anything else of Google. You don't have to re-identify yourself. And you all think that that's trivial. That's a very complicated thing to do. I mean, Google invested tons and tons of money in being able to do that, to allow you to seamlessly open apps without having to log in again and again and again and again. Right? Starbucks differentiates itself in the US because they just have an app on the phone. You finish paying your coffee, you just wave your phone and walk away. You think that sounds trivial, right? The customer loyalty records when, their feedback went up considerably just from that one thing. Amazon spends boatloads of money to make sure that your interface and your friction of checking in, checking out is reduced to the minimum possible. They've got now stores in Seattle where you don't have to identify yourself, you don't have to pay, you just pick up what you want and walk out. They have facial recognition technology, they'll recognize who you are and they'll bill you. Nothing you need to do. I'm staying at the Oberoi's here. They don't ask you for your ID anymore. They don't ask you to sign in. You walk in, they greet you by your name and take you to your room. End of story. Is that very tough to do? Not really. But does it increase customer loyalty? Considerably. So just reducing the friction of dealing with customers is another something, a very key ingredient in terms of engaging or making that a very core part of your business model. There used to be a concept where people used to market products. Look at my phone, I can sell this, I can do this, I can do that with it. And then people said that sell benefits. Right? But I challenge you, look at the ads of Google, look at the ads of Apple. It all talks about and makes you relate to experiences that you can enjoy by using their products. It embeds the customer with the experience that he can then have access to. And that's a far more sticky marketing strategy. Quickness, relevance of advertising, communication, relevance of any messaging to a customer is critical. You can't keep harping on saying that, look at my brand, my phone can do this, others can't. Customers have no time and tolerance for that. Right? But if you tell the customer something relevant to him, engage with him, and sort of, introduce your phone subtly in there, your customer is likely to get far more engagement and is going to be far more inclined to buying your products rather than any competitors. And that's why you'll notice a lot of advertising. You'll find strange, something else is going on and somebody introduces the product but never really talks about the product. Right? Especially true, especially relevant when all of the products can do virtually the same thing. I remember a comedy show I went to in Bombay, where the stand-up artist looked at the audience and sort of said that, how many of you have got the iPhone X? And about half the audience put up their phone and their hands. And then he pulled out a phone and he said, my phone costs 3,600 rupees. I'll give you a prize for 1 month. You can come to comedy shows here for free if you can tell me 3 things your phone can do which mine can't. Nobody won that prize. Right? So people have paid 75,000 rupees for something. It's not because they have some 5 features which they know better. It's because they feel part of a different experience because they have that. There's of course the coolness factor. I forgot. That's another very important thing. Especially relevant for the millennials and for Gen Z. How many of you watch the Kardashians? I'm sure no one's going to put up their hands here. Does anybody? One of the young ladies there became the youngest billionaire, self-created billionaires by selling lipstick. What's so complicated about lipstick? Well, she made a scene of putting nude lipstick and then putting some matte shade on top of it, and she kept trying different experiments and made a big song and dance about it. And from what I understand from my daughter, she actually used Botox of some nature or fluffed up her lips in some way. But who's to know better? But the bottom line is that when she actually launched a product, it was sold out. And that's because everyone was part and parcel of that journey, that experience. So that experience was what everybody was paying for. The young lady's become a billionaire, putting lipstick for 6 months and shooting herself and putting it on media. So don't underestimate this thing of engagement with customers, whatever it takes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be something very brilliant or esoteric or technology. It can be just something that is catching the customer's mood. Somebody in the last panel was talking about software as a service and outcomes. Again, a big trend. And as far as you can bring that into your business model, it's going to do you good. Do you know who's the largest manufacturers of aircraft engines in the world? It's Rolls-Royce. Right? Do you know that Rolls-Royce has stopped selling engines? They sell airlines the right to use the engines while flying. So the airlines have to pay them a fee for the number of hours that Rolls-Royce engine flies. What does Rolls-Royce do? They've put all kinds of IoT devices into the engines. They track all kinds of things about it. They maintain it proactively so that those same engines fly more. Today, 52% of the revenues of Rolls-Royce come from services, not from selling original product. Right? And these things which I'm mentioning to you are far bigger phenomenon than you can imagine. Frictionless. How much is it a pain for men to shave every day? Or every month have to buy shaving cream and shaving razors? Do you know a multi-billion-dollar company, a unicorn, was created by the simple insight that men find it irritating to go and buy shaving cream and blades every month? So you just join a club. It's called a shaving club. So automatically every month the company would send you your shaving gear. Blades and shaving foam. The company became a unicorn just from that one insight.